Hi, this is Nima, and this is Common Interests. We're doing a breakdown analysis of the common print run for the new set, Oath of the Gatewatch, which just got released like a couple weeks ago. It just showed up on Magic Online. So if I say anything wrong about power level or balance or anything like that, it's because the set's just new right now, so please excuse me on that. And if you want to see more about the nitty-gritty about common print runs, I would go see my last video on Battle for Zendikar. This time I'm trying to run through things pretty quickly. If you want a little bit more detail about how everything works, I'd go see the last video, but the Cliff Notes version is that development of the set has this little strategy to make sure that the color balance of a pack isn't too extreme, like there won't be 5 commons of green in your booster pack, and they don't want to have every common in the pack be really good because it would be disruptive to sealed as well. So they have a couple strategies that they use to make sure that doesn't happen, but it has a cost that there are a couple patterns that show up. There are some commons that show up next to other commons, like way more likely than you would think, and you would notice it if you look for it. And I'm going to show you how to notice for it and which ones show up together. So just like going through a pack, there's a rare and mythic rare in the back, 3 uncommons, and there's 10 commons. And then just like uncommons and mythic rares are split from each other, there are 3 groups of commons that are all separate from each other. Group A or print run A, and then Group B and Group C. If a common shows up in Group A, it won't be printed into Group C. They are separate from each other, just like uncommons are separate from commons in general. And just wanted to make a quick note about the new medium set model. We're drafting Oath Battle for Zendikar as opposed to the old model, which would just be 1 of the small set and 2 of the big set. This is now medium set. And the change to that is that there are more mythic rares and more uncommons, but the number of commons is actually the same as a small set. And that's kind of peculiar for drafting because you'll see multiples of the same common a lot. Very comparable to what you would see in a triple set draft. So for example, in Battle for Zendikar, you'd expect to see 2.4 Colostra Healers opened at the table. On average 2.4, not very uncommon to get 3 or 4 of them at your table. For Oath Gatewatch, you'll probably see on average 2.3, so compare 2.3 to 2.4. Like cultivator drones in your table. That's just with 2 Oath packs. So expect to see multiples of a lot of things, and if you pass something, don't get too broken up about it. You'll probably see it again, is what I'm trying to say over there. So just jumping right into the organization of the pack. Run A or Group A that shows up in the front is comprised of white, blue, and red commons that show up in that order. White, blue, red, just like that, repeated over and over again. Run B in the middle of the pack will be 2 to 3 cards from this run will be in the middle of the pack, and they are only comprised of green and black commons. And the back of the pack will have cards of all colors. The colored cards are generally stronger, and it also contains the lands and colorless spells like artifacts or the Eldrazi are going to be in the back of the pack, and there will be 4 to 5 cards from that print run in there. So these lands and colorless things will only show up in the back. They do not show up with Run A or Run B. So just keep that in mind. And then jumping into, these are just some example packs I have just to show you kind of the organization over here. So over here there's very typical pack would be 3-3-4. This shows up about, I have the stats over here, 57% of the time. And that's just the way it has to be printed to balance out the printing of it. It's not empirical. It's this is how it has to be in order to print them in the right ratios together. So most of the time will be 3 of Run A, 3 of Run B, and then 4 of Run C. And then there's a couple over here. Rarely there are only 2 from Run B. So you have 3 to 5, and oh, actually that's not too uncommon. But having a 4 of Run A is kind of the rare thing, like over here. 4 cards from Run A, then 2 from Run B, and then 4 from Run C. That's the rarest kind of pack that can show up. And the other thing is that, foils kind of mess up a lot of the logic behind print runs. It can replace any card, it can bump out any card from the end of these runs over here. So, like I said before, you can usually expect the color balance, one common of each color in each pack. But sometimes a foil will come in and bump out this brute strength over here. Then there will be no red common in the pack at all. kind of messes up the balance and some of the stuff you can kind of expect from a pack. So just keep that in mind. Foils mess things up. Moving on to Run A, just going to run through it pretty quickly. These are low to mid-tier white, blue, and red commons. There are 22 commons altogether, split between the 3 colors. So there are 7 blue commons, 7 red commons, and then 8 white commons. And that kind of like messes up the ordering as well. I suspect that the like kind of black sheep over here, or white sheep I guess I should say, Alpha Protector just shows up randomly in the print run for no good reason, just like bumps out a card that it shouldn't bump out. So sometimes you get like these bad groupings, like, let me see if I can find one over here. I should have actually had one like Alpha Protector, Mighty Leap, and Consuming Sinkhole might show up in your pack. No blue common shows up because Alpha Protector kind of counts as a blue common in this situation. And then I just want to point out some of the stronger cards that I found in this print run. It's mostly weak cards like the 1 mana spells and 2 mana spells that have to show up in the set, but aren't always destined for greatness. But there always has to be like a cheap white common flyer, and like the last one was Kitesail Scout, not very good, but every set has to have a cheap white common flyer. And over here it's McKindy Aeronaut. Not very impressive, not like terrible or anything, but this is where those cards kind of show up. Like for example, there always has to be a red lane destruction spell. I guess over here it's Consuming Sinkhole, and they just kind of like shove it over here. Like the last one was Volcanic Upheaval. The lane destruction spell was never good, but red always has to have one. It's not really priced to be a strong common anytime. It's going to show up in either Run A or Run B. So, the strong cards I did like in here that I wanted to point out were Searing Light, Cultivator Drone, Unto War Cleric, Maw of Kozilek, and Core Scythe Master. And the other note that I pretty much like all the white commons in the set. I guess like the worst one is Dazzling Reflection, but that's not completely unplayable like Natural State or Abstruse Interferences, you know? So, moving on to Run B. It's comprised only of black and green commons. There are 18 cards in this run, and so there's 9 commons of each color. So they're not all bad because there's not 9 bad green commons in the set. The ones that I like are Netcaster Spider and Saddleback Lagacus. Saddleback Lagacus has like skyrocketed in value for me. I like it a lot. It shows up in this print run B over here. But there's also like a kind of duds in here, like Witness the End and Corpse Churn and Natural State. These are just completely off cards that show up in Run B. And oh, the pattern that shows up in here is that it just alternates black, green, black, green, black, green. You won't have like 2 black cards right next to each other. If you do see like 2 black cards from Run B in your pack, but no green card from Run B in your pack, you can instantly assume that someone took a medium green common, probably Saddleback Lagak, from the pack, or maybe they really wanted the fixing, so they took Lone Larva. That's just like something that you can assume that they did. And then going on to the interesting stuff is Run C. So this contains the rest of the colored spells that we haven't talked about yet, and pretty much all the colored spells in this run are pretty strong. And then there's also the colorless cards down over here: Bonesaw, Hedron Crawler, Seer's Lantern, Kozilek's Pathfinder. Not exactly super strong, but they show up all here together. And then the colorless lands, again, not really something you want to first pick in general, but they all show up in the back over here. Oh, and also an extra note that Wastes, probably most people already know this, but Waste comes up in 2 separate arts. There's a Kozilek art and an Ulamog art, and these are treated as independent to each other. So there are twice as many Wastes as there are of any other common, like Bonesaw and the Wastes with Kozilek's art with the geometric shapes and everything. They show up in equal ratios. And going on to the strong cards I like, again, pretty much all of the colored cards are either like well-costed creatures or they are removal spells. So like looking at the strong blue commons over here, like Flyer, and these are like pseudo removal spells, and then Blinding Drone is also a pseudo removing spell. These are the strong blue commons in the set. And I guess there are a couple weak ones like Tar Snare and Reality Hemorrhage. They're still removal, so they're considered, you know, strong. However, they're not as good as a lot of the other cards in the set, but they show up here as strong cards. So if I say if I make any rules about strong cards, I'm talking about these ones over here. And then there's also like Hedron Crawler is probably the only like strong card from the lands and the colorless ones. But I mean, some people are going to take Crumbling Vestige highly if they need to have a colorless source. So the only interesting pattern I found over here, it was kind of like all jumbled up, but there is this certain color scheme that always shows up together, and that is red, then land, then blue, then colorless, and those always show up in that order, and then like in between these blocks over here. So I got like this block of red, land, blue, colorless, red, land, blue, colorless, red, land, like goes on like that. In between them there are just like these groupings of Abzan colored cards that just show up in between the holes and the cracks over there. So what you can use this to find out is probably the big thing is that if you see a colorless card as well as a land together, you should see a strong blue common in between them. If you don't see it, that probably means that someone took it. So for example, you get like this grouping over here of like Holdout Settlement, Blinding Drone, to Druid Path Warden, and then someone takes the Blinding Drone and passes you the pack, shuffles it up. So you see the land and you see the colorless, but you don't see a strong blue common. That means you can guess that they took it. It's not 100% because sometimes there are 5 cards from this print run in your pack. And so for example, if this showed up, this is why I wanted to like show this part of the print run over here. Holdout Settlement, Goblin Free Runner, Stalking Drone, Oblivion Strike, Hedron Crawler. And they take the Oblivion Strike, then ship you the rest of the cards. You see Hedron Crawler and Holdout Settlement together. And like, oh, they probably took a blue common. That's not always true. Sometimes they took card in between, so just be aware of that. But it's pretty much like over 90% of the time this happens, they will have taken a blue common. So keep that in mind. And the other thing that can show interesting over here is the way that's organized is that you can't have 2 red commons from run C in your pack together because they are spaced separately from each other. There's like a big gap between them. Like, let's see, there's 5 cards in between here, and you can only have 5 cards at max from run C in your booster pack. That means that Xyz's Commando and Goblin Free Runner can never show up together, and that also goes for the colorless lands. You'll never have to make the judgment call between like Holdout Settlement and Crumbling Vestige. They cannot show up together in your pack. And let's see, let's go on to the very end over here. I just want to review kind of like the quick things that you can kind of make a judgment about. And this is the very typical one from every set, is that there is at least 1 common of each color in your pack. There's a little caveat over here that Alpha Protector can show up as the red or blue. It represents red or blue if you see an Alpha Protector over there, just because it kind of messes up the print run from run A. And oh, one of the peculiar ones is that, again, there are at least at most one strong common of each color in the pack, according to run C. So if you see Vampire Envoy in your pack, is the 3-mana vampire that gains you life and never gets tapped. It's a pretty strong card. If you see that in your pack, then you know that an Oblivion Strike was not taken out of it. They did not take the best black common out of there. So you can kind of be safe in that situation, knowing that they didn't take an Oblivion Strike and that black is probably open unless they took a black rare or black uncommon. And lastly, there is this pattern over here of red, land, blue, colorless. So I guess you can also use this to judge whether the person passing to you took a land out of the pack. If you see a red common and a blue common from run C, then you know that there's a colorless land missing. That's not extremely interesting, of course, because I mean, you're not going to really play around the fact that they took Crumbling Vestige. It's not like you're going to draft a certain way in response to that. It's not very interesting to know. Same with like if they took a Hedron Crawler, who cares? You can't really use that information for anything. But there is a very easy way to find out if they took a blue common, is if you see the land and colorless cards in there. And there are like certain ones that show up together. For example, Blinding Drone shows up with Kozilek's Pathfinder a lot. So if you see a Kozilek's Pathfinder and suspect that a blue common has been taken, it was probably Blinding Drone. And you should probably try to stay away from the blue colorless archetype. However, you can still go into like the blue-red Surge archetype. That's something you can use. And then the other one I saw kind of interesting was like Sweep Away shows up with Unknown Shores a lot. It's not something that you can like really play around again, but yeah, if you see Unknown Shores along with Bonesaw that was past you, you can judge that they took Sweep away. You might want to stay away from a blue control archetype. And those are pretty much the big things. I hope I did good timing over here. I'm just over 15 minutes, so I'm gonna stop right there. I avoided a lot of the commentary, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Bye.